So, just a little introduction. So, Nori and I already made a plan. Just it took very, very few minutes to develop the plan on how to attack the session. Um, and I just wanted to summarize for you what we are doing so you don't die of shock or disorientation or uncertainty. So first, we will check the system that Nori set up, so a note-taking system. So we will avoid the discussion if something now is a Zettelkasten or not, because it's not an interesting session, because the desired outcome is like any desired outcome in a coaching session. So either, or my goal is to either increase the value that Nori gets out of her practice, or understand the why a little bit better. So that doesn't mean that I have the answers, but it's rather an interaction. So either I have an idea or I will poke at Nori so long that she has a better idea on her own, or anything in between. So after checking the system, or checking the system would rather mean checking individual parts also and seeing if it kind of like works on a local level, and then connecting it back to the global, meaning a whole practice. Because this is the goal. The goal is to develop a holistic practice that is well integrated in the overall life and the meaning structure. So yeah, so this would be it. And then the next point, or the last point, is the question what to do next. So I have different formulations and wordings for that. So it's connecting the learning with the doing, or what does it actually mean to make an idea your own, or how to continue, because Nori identified the bottleneck now in her practice, that she can put everything together. She then has basically the material, but then the process is rather, let's say, trusting the unconscious. So it's kind of like getting the input, then letting it sit, and then intuitively producing something out of it. And the something then is, for example, a blog post. So let's jump into it. So let's check your system. So what is your system?
Yeah, so my system is actually, for most part, a physical journal
Mhm.
that I carry around with me. And I then I take pictures of everything and archive it and link to it from a note file. So I have all of my journals here with linked pictures and a sort of an index so that I can search through it.
Mhm.
Um, and most of these things I never come back to, or like I don't really need to, because there's a lot of fleeting notes and things that I just needed to get out of my system. Uh, but I index what feels more important than what I want to come back to.
Mhm.
And then when I want to think a bit more closely through some topic, I make a note, a digital note, sometimes on paper as well. It depends. So I mean, it's a mix. It's a lot of paper
Mhm.
writing, because I think better on paper. I realized that after I moved more to journaling, and I can see that I think very differently and much more deeply when I write by hand. So I try to do that as much as possible. So this text file is sort of just the tip of the iceberg. Um, but it's the tip of the iceberg that I need to kind of process the biggest
Mhm.
ideas, or the things that keep coming back, and I need to go back to it. So yeah, and then I just write some notes. I don't know if like I have several that we could look at now. Like this one is sort of a bit more practical problem, because I've realized that I have trouble ending uh, tasks, things, activities. Um, so I've been sort of thinking about why that is, uh, how it affects my ability to start tasks, and I've been trying to think about solutions. because
Mm-hmm.
that's obviously the outcome that I desire from this note, to figure out how to overcome my problem
Mm-hmm.
with ending things. Because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, these notes are. I mean, I don't consider this Zettelkasten, so it's not atomic in any way. Um, or maybe I just have very big atoms.
Mm-hmm.
But so I mean, with this note, it's it's that I mean, the problem is that I tend to procrastinate with tasks that I don't know how long they will take, or that I'm worried that I will get into a flow and won't be able to stop it when it's time to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I've been kind of brainstorming solutions, like defining clear ends, leaving time for transitions,
Mm-hmm.
and planning fewer transitions in a day,
Mm-hmm.
um, and making the start easier by anchoring it to something else, ideally something sensory that happens anyway, or that I can fit into my day and that might be enjoyable and things like that. But I guess this note in that sense is pretty com complete. At least it feels complete to me right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then I have other notes. Hmm. For example, which one could I? I have a note about agency, which I guess in some sense relates to that, the ability to do what one wants to do,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which I've been having trouble with. So I've been reading about it quite a bit and listening to other people talk
Mm-hmm.
about this topic. So, and this note feels more like it's just a dumping ground of other people's ideas,
Mm-hmm.
like definitions of what agency is, um, how play and flow states are actually states of reduced agency, but it's in a way it's desirable because that's what flow is, right? Engaging with something and reacting to it and being sort of immersed. Um, Other ways that we lose agency through, like lack of energy, lack of time to think, overcrafted conditions, but all of these ideas are from someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so in some way, I only gathered them here, and I'm not quite sure what to do with them next.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess I guess the ultimate goal is to use this to somehow improve my own agency,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe also share whatever I come to
Mm-hmm.
with other people online. But right now, it just feels like I don't know what I have to say about this other than just compiling these resources, which I feel like is not quite what I'm after. Like I feel like I would like to maybe add something to it, or apply it somehow, but I don't quite see yet how or what to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so first step. Um, this so what you presented is workflow, and part of the workflow clearly is something like a Zettelkasten. So you make you create individual nodes, and the more you will work with it, the more your nodes will connect to it. So what is, let's say, missing if you have did I send you the article that I will publish about the Atomicity as a principle versus an implementation?
No, no, I don't think
No,
so.
no, no. I sent you I sent you my my commentary on your article. Yes. So
Yeah.
after session I will send you the article because I don't know when it's edited enough to be published. So I mean In a former session, we already talked about the difference between atomicity as, let's say, as a principle guiding a process and as like a strict necessity before you even enter a node. So, the former node, so about ending things, or to like even move a step higher. So atomicity, I mean, people talk about atomicity like all the time. And when you ask people, so people that should know what atomicity is. So I don't want to like put anyone on the spot who is kind of like read, I don't know, Sönke Arendt's How to Take Smart Notes, and then now is like enthusiastic and is just like writing on Reddit. Because like if you put you in a position in you which you actually like publish seriously, not just as a hobby or something like that about this, then you should know what atomicity is. But you will find um, typically just avoidance of defining it properly. So what is an atomic node? It's a node about a single idea. So what is a single idea? Yeah, it's succinct. It's like standing on its own feet. So it's all metaphorical speech. And in the article, soon to be published, before it will be published, known to Nori. Um, it's um, um, it's a beetle in the box trick or problem. Beetle in a box so is from the late Wittgenstein. So for people who don't know the difference, so the early Wittgenstein basically wrote something like a manifesto, so the Tractatus, and he said decided then, okay, I solved any interesting philosophical problem, and he went like somewhere and went fishing for I don't know how long, and then he changed his mind and then basically contradicted a lot of his earlier stuff. And both, I mean, the late and the early Wittgenstein are like treated as like completely different people because they are so contradicting each other. And the beta in the box problem is something like that. So imagine each of us has a box in the pocket, and nobody has the means to look into the box of another person, just in your own box. So on the level of language, the most likely outcome is that we develop a word for this thing in the box. And even though we would describe it, we are not sure if this thing in the box is similar enough to be called the same thing. So imagine I would have, let's say, a beetle, and you would have, I don't know, a fly. And I would say, okay, my thing has 6 legs and it has wings and has some antennae and stuff like that. And you would like confirm. So on this level, we would say, oh, it might be the same, like really the same thing, even though there's a big difference, hopefully, that we all know between the beetle and the fly. And this is what he used to illustrate the language game that we play because of the inability to look into each other's heads. So it's more performance. That I mean, it works, and there are like plenty of counter arguments and interjections to the whole thing. So don't take it as given truth. But to me, it looks like that the collective thinking process is at this point. So people avoid to open the box with which is labeled atomicity. To me, the solution is pretty clear, meaning, yeah, you need to develop a theory or model of what atoms actually are. So my personal approach to this is to just have an inventory. So an inventory is flexible, you can add to it or throw something out. And my personal inventory is has 6 components. So concepts or definitions for concepts, arguments, counter arguments, models, theory or hypotheses, and empirical observation, like formerly known as facts, I think. So there's an article on the blog that is called "Reading and Searching," in which I laid them out, and I contrasted it in the series about Zettelkasten for fiction writing, where in story I see different building blocks. So there are character descriptions, there is exposition for the world, there's dialogue and actions and stuff like that, and these would be then building blocks of story. Whether you agree with the inventory or not is a different topic, because I might be wrong, and it's perhaps I'm completely wrong. So nobody of the 6 items should be considered like pure knowledge building blocks or not, but at least you should have like a theory of what actually a building block contains. So the other node, so ending things, could be seen, or the building block would be, to me, just a two-component model, problem solution. And this is to me the atom that I'm seeing. So what now is in the periphery obviously is like supporting stuff, so the node is understandable. Because you could say, okay, I need to make it more atomic, and therefore it needs to be shortened or something like that. But what you will sacrifice is obviously the readability and usability of the node to yourself. So one might say, okay, this is not atomic because agency requires energy is a different idea than agency needs time to think. But this is just saying, okay, there are different statements on the node. Not that they are different ideas, because you need, if you would say these are different. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not
You
agent.
want to?
Yeah, I was on the agency
You were
node.
on. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I'm back.
Oh, oh, no, we need to reply to the other node. So please open open the node on ending things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for example, solutions. There are 4 different solutions, and one might argue each solution is an individual different idea. So, define clear ends and leave time for transitions or something like that. I would say the solution is just a bundle. So this is how I'd view it, because it's problem and solution. So what would be the benefit of now dividing up, let's say, the 4 different solutions, meaning pushing them out to the node and then leaving the link behind, and then you have just a list of those solutions. I don't see any good benefit to you, because it would just mean that you have to click more. So would it make the node more atomic? Well, it depends on how the scale of atomicity is. So to over milk the metaphor, so you can even divide an atom to separate atomic particles. So you could just argue, okay, defining clear ends is just a proton, part of the bigger atom. So it's not a clear-cut question, a clear-cut problem, and it only becomes clear-cut if you have a theory of atoms or an inventory of atoms. And to me, this is, I mean, sometimes I have to force it a little bit into this 6-item thingy. But this, I would put the atom in the center, and I would allow like something in the periphery, because sometimes you need a sentence or two to illustrate something, and it could be its own idea, but on the level of the node, it's just supporting supporting stuff. And also, when it's for you, it's fine to be a little bit messy, because it needs to work. Because atomicity is not like a purist kind of thing. I think this this purism comes mostly from or it comes from different sources. So one source is the problem of using nodes to demonstrate. Meaning, when I want to make a video or write a book or something like that, I couldn't use longer nodes, even though they were atomic, to illustrate, because it would take too much space, or if I create a video, it would distract. So the content would distract from my goal. So what do? I just have like a title and perhaps 2 sentences, or a statement or claim or whatnot. So something that I, for example, wouldn't even consider a full atom, because a statement to me is not on the level of knowledge, because it's not enough. Meaning, according to my theory, it's not often it's not a definition, so it could be a model, but a model needs to be opened. A model is only captured if you have all the entities that the model maps to reality, and the relationships. So this is when you have a model, and therefore model nodes are often just longer, because many models are a little bit more complex than just like 2 things. But when you look at the node, it's like pretty tidy. It has just like 2 sections, problem and solution. And this problem solution couple is atomic enough. Atomic enough according to the theory of atomicity, because a problem solution couple is a typical is a typical model. And therefore, in my theory, it's an atom. So,
Cool.
um, hmm?
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. So you have an atomic node, and this qualifies this node to being a Zettelkasten node. So I mean, you illustrated the problem like in your article very well because it's a struggle to find the balance between being too rigid and being too loose. And I personally just try to avoid it because um, I don't use the term Zellkasten or the terms Zellkasten and Zellkasten method as like in legal text. So it's not a
Mm.
list of criteria and everything has to meet and it's kind of this. It's rather a living concept, and if you take one thing out, it's still the thing. So my I don't know if I would call it a favorite example because it's not a nice example, but if you cut off a leg from a horse, it still keeps being a horse. And you still will describe a horse as a four-legged animal. So this is the difference between um, a rigid approach to concepts and a rather, let's say, sufficient approach, perhaps. So the one thing is if it's enough, if it's similar enough, then it's the concept still applies or the definition still applies. And it's not that you have like, I mean, this is a problem. We can attach it to the topic that we had before I press record. It's either seeing the or using the left brain to concepts, so it has to apply exactly how it is, and if it's not the thing. Or you apply the right hemisphere approach and you say, okay, there is like a theme, like a pattern, and some deviations are allowed as long as it doesn't break.
Mm.
This makes it more difficult to communicate, and also it makes more difficult to have arguments on Reddit, for example, or in any other medium, because then you can say, "Oh, this node is not atomic, and therefore it's not a Zellkasten." So what does it mean? So if I have like five non-atomic nodes in my Zellkasten, is it enough to for my Zellkasten to lose this badge of honor being a Zellkasten or whatnot? It doesn't work. So this definition or this approach to definitions is not working online so much because online or the online world is mostly for non-family friendly movies, arguments, and getting steered up. So this is what the internet provides us mostly, let's say, and therefore it's not easily to communicate to. So it's not, how would you say, it's not sexy to communicate in these more forgiving terms. So the parts are that you demonstrated is you have your journal, so your capturing device. You have the transcripts in Emacs in the way of I think you just like make a picture and then put it in there, or how do you do it?
Yeah, where am I? Yeah, I just take pictures and have them in a file, and then yeah, I took a picture of the back of the journal as well. So I basically have, let's
Let's
see.
let's see a family friendly.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I think my handwriting is basically a great code. So I just have. I mean, it's everything. I mean, it's a journal, so I journal in it.
Mhm.
It's a to-do. It holds my to-do lists.
Mhm.
It holds the journal. It all holds any kind of reflections that
Mhm.
I do during the day and any kind of ideas that I capture from other people. And I don't do much filtering there, but I filter enough because I have to write it by hand
Mhm.
and the space feels limited because the page is not that big, right?
Mhm.
So that helps me not over capture.
Mhm.
But I still capture more than is strictly necessary. But I mean, sometimes I need to do it to get it out of my system.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Um,
how much work does it take to take the photo, or how do you implement it? So is it a weekly thing that you do photographs of the weekly entries?
well, I mean, this is quite new because I've been before when I did not do as much note taking in my journals. I would just take pictures when I was done with the journal.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm not sure. I'm thinking of maybe taking pictures monthly,
Mm-hmm.
but I do usually have the journal with me. So it's not a problem to have it open on the side
Mm-hmm.
when I'm working with the digital notes and just refer to it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I haven't taken pictures of my current journal yet, and I'm about halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that the moment I moved to a new book, it's easier to take pictures and have it in one place than having to go and get the book if I'm trying to find a note from an older one.
Okay, so the journal index is mostly a safety measure, you would say, because practically you have your book and then it's just there and you can use it.
Yeah, yeah, that's mostly it.
Um, then I think it's not really important because it's just a safety measure. Then you can do it like daily, monthly, yearly after the book is closed or something like that. As long as you make sure that the photographs end up in your journal index, yeah, then you're good to go. I was interested because about
Oh,
the time
but
and
they
Hmm?
I just noticed that the dates are wrong on those journals. They all have I forgot to rewrite the.
Yeah, I
I
didn't.
was like, all of them.
Uh,
That's 10, 11 journals there. But most of them don't have much note taking in them, more just journaling, but I just have it in one place.
Mhm. Yeah, so I was asking because for me, I always look out for friction costs because I mean, I struggled for like a long time to have something like a task management system going. And for me, the friction cost was to making sure to tidy it up once a week, the typical weekly review thing. And only when I really forced myself to have the weekly review, my task management was somewhat functional. And in the Zettelkasten world, also the implementation is, or many points of implementation impose a lot of friction costs. So especially if you have a rigid understanding of Atomicity, let's say, so what you applied in the beginning, you had a lot of like chore type activities, and then naturally this becomes something that you need to schedule. So is it like in the evening once you atomize everything, or you have your inbox and then you make it a weekly thing, something like that. But this seems like low maintenance, so I don't see like big friction costs that might break the system.
No, I think I tried to reduce that kind of friction. I mean, the writing by hand adds friction to capture,
Mhm.
which is a good kind of friction. But then with the journal, what's nice for me as well is that I can't redo those notes and whatever I write. It's just there, and
Mhm.
I can sort of forget about it if I want to, which I have trouble doing when I have digital notes.
Mhm.
I tinker. I just go back and I tinker and I try to organize. So since I can't organize on paper, then that removes a lot of the friction. And what I do is I usually do a monthly review of everything, basically, just like goals, life, whatever, how the month has been, which I write in my journal. And at the same time, I update the index in the journal, like the paper index,
Mhm.
um, so that when I later decide to take pictures of the pages and upload them, I made some scripts to make it easier to give them the right page numbers and everything. So that's half automated. And then I can basically just use that index that I have in the physical book to
Mhm.
add basically a table of contents to those pages that are now linked from
Mhm.
my note. So it's fairly low friction.
Mhm. Yeah, so yeah, I
So that
guess
works.
yeah, according like how you described it, I don't so I even have little commentary on that because it's like really straightforward. And I mean, and it's a good thing that I don't have commentary on it, like other than okay, a functioning system, because I think not I think, but you might say that note-taking systems are very similar or follow the I forgot the principle, the name of the principle, family principle, the family phenomena, or something like that. The first sentence of Anna Karenina. All happy
Oh,
families no are alike, but the families with problems have problems all in their individual case. I butchered the quote like gravely,
yeah,
but
but I know the quote. Yeah, that's basically it.
yeah, and I mean you have something. So for me, for example, the benefit of being me is that I sit in front of my computer like all day, and sitting in my work also is relatively like overlapping with my note taking. So I personally, for example, decided to not have a capturing device like I had like for many years because I need to do the or to protect myself from the other side. I don't need a capturing device to make sure that I capture everything and stuff like that. I need to make sure that when I walk my dog, I don't interrupt this thing, and also get like a true break from this type of work. Um, but the basic system is always the same. You make it like somewhat easy to capture, and then you have a safety measure. So it's mostly psychological, I would say, that you have everything in case, just in case, and most of the time the case never comes, but it comes to mind. So to me, for example, this is one of the major benefits of having something like a second brain. So I just dump in there all the stuff. So when I open a couple of YouTube videos too much, then I will just like click through them like for 15 seconds, evaluate, okay, is this something that I might use later or not? And then I file it in my second brain, and then it's away. And it's not that I feel the nudge to keep all the tabs open just to not lose it, or have some linking archive in some like another software, something like that. And then yeah, what you are doing is you focus on some ideas. This is where you have the notes, and I mean you got, at least from me, the awful badge atomic enough. And the agency note, for example, is, so it's very similar, or the reasoning that I have for the agency note is very similar to the reasoning I gave to Ashish regarding the using the Zettelkasten method for Hindu philosophy. Because to be able to break up the node, you need to be able to confidently identify an atom, meaning it should be not too less what you can then make out of the node, or not. It shouldn't be too big. Too big would be actually a minor problem. Because if you, for example, now extract out, let's say, agency is two things, and then the two bullet points below that, like right in the beginning. So what kind of
Mhm.
benefit is it? And how do you make sure that this is the actual atom? So it might be, or the agency might be underdetermined. So you need to add something, or it might be overdetermined. So perhaps you would need to even remove one of the two things. And to come to the conclusion, you need to have the context available, meaning this node will provide the context, because the decision to like either add something or to remove something to the basic definition is dependent on the knowledge. So, for example, when you have some ideas on how agency can be lost, this might influence how you view agency, because what if agency is lost, but it wouldn't change to know what you want or something like that. So all these aspects interfere. So the benefit of having this node just separated like this is that you can then make informed decisions. And the decision is, what I mean by informed decisions is immediately informed. Because if you didn't engage with the topic to a point in which everything is like reasonably clear, you can expect yourself to have a note just with those two bullet points, and have all the other context that is important to actually work with the note just in the top of your mind. I mean, it's contradicting itself, because if you would have it, then you wouldn't have the problem of, or the challenge would be solved already and met. So having this on the note just delays the atomicity and puts the thinking process to the Zettelkasten, so in the Zettelkasten. So you have all the context. And if your Zettelkasten matures, Then you have even additional links. So for example, or let's say I would put, I don't have a note on agency for the reason we don't have a German word for agency. I don't know why. I mean, typically it's the other way around. So we have like a gazillion words that English doesn't have, at least in the slightest. So examples might be Schadenfreude or Fremdschämen. So Schadenfreude is when you are happy because somebody has bad luck. And Fremdschämen means that you feel shame even though another person is embarrassing him or herself.
Second, I think in English it's second-hand embarrassment.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's the word.
secondhand embarrassment. Yeah, you see, but it's
It's a long, yeah, you need to use a lot of words.
yeah, you're describing. So I mean,
Mm.
it's part of the German language that you have this kind of thing. So, but sometimes you even have like particular words for something. Japanese is, I think, the very similar. So you have like strong words for a particular thing. I can't remember the word, but there's even a word for face, but it's like its own thing. Yeah, but so in a way, even you could even argue that you already preformed atoms because of the sectioning. Because now imagine you just put an identifier in front of each section, and now you can point to each section on this node. So technically speaking, now a section becomes the Zettel, the individual
Mm.
node, the atomic node, just because you put in identifier, like functionally speaking. So a thought experiment that I used for that is you could even have just one no one file, text file for the entirety of your Zettelkasten. And wherever you put an identifier, you can point to this to the section. So you could even like put it like in the middle of a sentence just to highlight like a section of the sentence. You can point it to like a paragraph or whatnot. So everything that has an identifier now can be pointed to, so it can refer to. And on the level, like mechanically, you split up the node like functionally. But on the level of the system, it's just one file, for example. And now if you would put an identifier in front of each section, it would be something like a hybrid. So some nodes don't have identifiers within them, as in the sections, and other nodes have it. But the files, how you separate the content through the files is it's not part of the function. I mean, it's the way how you engage on the level of the software, but the Zettelkasten itself would be then divided according to the identifiers. So you haven't put an identifier yet before it's each section. I mean, it's not a recommendation, but if you think this through, then it becomes more clear that it's not that you need to put an atom on the file, and also it's not helpful to say, okay, there is a particular point in time in which you should um, put an identifier and make a section its own thing, its own node, even an atomic node, because it's a case-by-case decision. So sometimes it's just practical to have everything on the node. It doesn't mean that now this node stops being a proper Zettelkasten node, or the whole Zettelkasten stops being a proper Zettelkasten. Because I mean, the Zettelkasten needs to hold two different things. So and it tracks in my own Zettelkasten, for example, when I have an inventory of methodologies, for example. So two different teachers would be an example of it. So I think I don't have a better example for this mythology other than there is a movie with Chucky Chan and Jet Li, and it's basically like some adaptation of the Journey to the West. And Jackie Chan is Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan is kind of a drunk guy. So it's all about drunken boxing and more feeding approach and stuff like that. And Jet Li is like a very rigid monk and very formal and stuff like that. And the protagonist is now teach kung fu by both of them. And this is like a very recurring mythology, meaning the smallest unit of meaning in story, or not stories, but perhaps in myths and fairy tales and stuff like that. And it basically symbolizes that there are two different ways to solve a problem. So this problem there would be being a martial artist, let's say, and at the same time, it means there is a chance to find a higher way. Because in the movie, for example, the protagonist would merge both styles and then become like a transcendence of both approaches. And this is something like an allusion to dialectic, meaning you have synthesis, and antithesis, and then you have you have thesis, antithesis, and then synthesis that transcends and encompasses both. In this inventory of methodologies, it's short notes, very clear cut, because it's very easy to atomicize. It's even a precondition to have the atom to even identify the methodology. So identifying a methodology is identical with writing atomic notes. And then the note could be longer with like examples and stuff, but having the atom is quite identical with the knowledge work behind that. And then I have notes like notes on like bigger models or models that I need to work out in detail, like the fitness model, for example. So this would be a note. I think it would be almost double the length of this note, especially if you include the major picture. It's still atomic because it concerns this one model, and I mean the ideas, the supporting ideas, and where I get into more detail. This stuff is on other notes, but I need to have link context. So a good explanation what the link is referring to. So there's a lot of like stuff that has to be on the note, and this makes the note long. And sometimes it's even like completely non-atomic because I'm not at the point where I can confidently like separate the atoms. And both are living happily in my Zettelkasten. So I have like very quote unquote like strict atomic short notes, and I have notes that are completely different. And there's no interference on the method. And it has to be because when the Zettelkasten aims to be a universe thinking environment. So that means when you have a domain in which you can think clearly, and even thinking clearly is the precondition to actually think about that, the mythology inventory is a case of that, then it's very tidy. But if something is like completely messy and you are at the limits of your capacity, or you are on, let's say, on the limits of the creation, meaning you're always pushing to create something new, then it's completely messy. And it has to be. But it's all guided by atomicity, meaning different domains allow you to introduce atomicity or to reach something like atomicity in different stages of the development. So still, this is still working in adherence to atomicity. Even if you'd never reach the point of atomicity, rephrasing the sentence more appropriately to the method is you didn't reach atomicity yet. Because it could be, but it doesn't has to be. Because I mean, if you think it through, what if you have a session and you need to, I don't know, the child is screaming and you stop note taking. So the note is just half baked. I mean, it doesn't destroy your Zettelkasten, no, nothing. Obviously, if every note is half-baked, then you have a problem. But a little bit of mess in the Zettelkasten has to be tolerated by the system. And this is one of the major benefits of the digital system over the physical one. Because in the physical one, you have like a lot of constraints. And people sometimes portray it as a benefit. But it's a constraint of your ideas and of your thinking. But it's not a meaningful constraint because it just limits the number of words on the space. That means it's not a constraint that is connected to the knowledge itself, because sometimes an atom is long and sometimes it's short, depending on the complexity of the atom. So you want constraints connected to the value or to the medium that you're working on. So for example, your notebook, for example, it creates a constraint that is connected to the value creation, because I mean, you are very open, therefore filtering is different, and the constraint that you have to write by hand, so you can't capture everything, is directly correlated to your openness, meaning the constraint is directly connecting to the material or to the input that you're having. So openness is then a thing that needs to be then constrained. Number of words don't need to be constrained. Number of words is nothing. It's I would say, I call it an orthogonal type of information, or in my terms, it's a puzzle information. Similar, so you can work out the puzzle, for example, just like closing your eyes, or even like turning the puzzle backwards so you don't see the image, and that just figuring it out by form. Or length of movie or time spent in movie is also a type of information like that. Because when you are halfway through and the hero is in big trouble, you know the hero won't die, but it takes out the life out of the movie. Because if you then look at the watch and say, the hero won't die, why? Then you're not engaging with the movie on the level of plot, action, and character development and stuff like that. And the same is true when you have a card. So you're not constraining yourself on the level that you want to work, on the level of knowledge, for example. And this is, I mean, there are the benefits of having an analog system, but this particular thing is not a wise constraint. With your notebook, it's a wise constraint because it's connected. So
I actually did. Sorry if I'm
no, no, no,
interrupting.
no, no. Feel free to interrupt me anytime. It's a good idea to interrupt me.
I did actually have a physical Zettelkasten before. I tried that, and I had an A5 sized
Mm,
papers, and I did find it constraining in not a good way, because when I'm actually doing thinking and not just jotting down someone else's ideas, I am quite verbose.
mm,
So it was limiting in a way that wasn't very good.
mm,
And unlike a physical notebook, I found it very difficult to flip through it.
mhm,
And I did not like the filing problem, as in having to decide where to put it early on, because I don't always know what the idea is going to be. So I actually I tried that, and I can see your point there, because um, it was not very useful to have that space
mm,
constraint on the cards. And when I had a digital Zettelkasten, I like a note like this one, like the one on agency, I would have split it up. I
mm,
would have split it up, and I would have been premature, because then I would feel like I wasn't able to work with it because I could not see it all at once. Um, because this note, it's still very much a work in progress, and I'm not quite sure where it's going and what I want to do with it.
mm,
But the way I used to do it before was that I thought I had to sort of make each idea into its own atomic note so
mm,
that I could work with them.
mm,
But I don't know, maybe it works for some people. It did not work for me, because suddenly it felt like the blocks I needed to build something were scattered around,
mm,
and I would have to first gather them somehow,
mm,
which, I mean, the software is just not made for it to. I mean, I could open a bunch of notes on the screen,
mm,
but just finding them, even if they were linked or something, like just getting everything open, and it just wasn't working. So that's why I kind of felt like I'm not gonna do it Zettelkasten this time and just keep things together. But I do see that in some sense it still does fit under the definition
mhm,
of a Zettelkasten. But yeah, that was something that really helped me make the notes more usable for
mhm,
myself, to not split it up prematurely. I don't
mm.
know, maybe I will split this up. And I was actually considering having just one single huge file for everything and link between headings, but I think that's a little bit, it doesn't scale well.
Mm, I would say it's a rather feeling thing because it might be that we still like identify or feel that a file actually is a physical thing, like an entity, and then it's just easier on the mind when a node is identical with a file, and not because you could have a hybrid approach. So you can let envision like a list of files, but the nodes or the individual atomic nodes don't map to the files. So sometimes a node spans over three files. You could do it functionally. So three files would have the same identifier. So like functionally, they would be a single node, and then sometimes a node or one file contains 10 nodes. So when it doesn't map like so much, it introduces just like too much messiness, and then it's not easy on the mind. So perhaps it's an ergonomic thing. But there is a situation in which it works when you have this like super atomist approach. And the case is when you know the content of the node already good enough. So this is a good example is, for example, the demonstration of Bob Doto, how he writes in Obsidian with the Zettelkasten. Because what you saw, all this, Bob Doto immediately knew what was on the file. But it was, I mean, it was clearly a topic in which he already knew the stuff. He already has an opinion, and the notes titles were merely a prompt. And also the notes themselves, they barely expanded on the note title. So the note title was a little bit concise, and then it was like a little bit more wordy. So there was no like proper new information. And this doesn't work if the note content is more complex. So if it's, I don't know, if you, for example, have the concept of, let's say, the concept of non-duality in Hindu philosophy, and then it's just not possible to have a line or two lines or two sentences, but you need to be like really elaborate, and it has to be longer. Then it doesn't work unless, obviously, you studied Hindu philosophy for 40 years, and then the title alone prompts this whole thing. It's very similar to chess, for example. Carl Newport had the metaphor. I feel a little bit stupid that I didn't came up with a metaphor myself. He said, chess is very similar to language. Oh, it was not Carl. Perhaps it was. I forget it. Forgot it. But when you are a beginner, you just see words. You need to identify words, meaning individual pieces on the chessboard and how they move. And then there are sentences, so sequences of possible movements and stuff like that. And the more you learn to read chess, the more you can just scan a paragraph basically and see what is in there. And this is why a professional chess player like looks at the board and like even can memorize the complete positions in like a couple of seconds or something like that, or pull off a feat of playing games like blindfolded or 20 games at the same time, stuff like that. And with knowledge, it's pretty much the same. So if you are able to activate the stuff in your long-term memory just by a prompt, then just a prompt is enough to handle this. So I really like the term long-term working memory. So there is a paper by Anders Ericsson. So the same guy that invented, quote unquote, the term deliberate practice, for example. So it's kind of like you have a pyramid, and let's say the top is your consciousness, and there are representations. So the more your pyramid grows, meaning your expertise grows, this tiny thing, your consciousness, now represents a more and more of like a depth of knowledge, and then it works. But it can't work if you don't if you didn't like think through all the content and you know everything like completely inside out. In those situations, it doesn't work, and therefore, to make it actually a thinking environment, it has to mirror the level of your thinking. And this, for example, just represents the level of your thinking. Or in my notes, I have like, or in my Zettelkasten, I have like completely similar notes, just like random stuff, like a couple of sections, and then like I've longer blocks with just questions and like little plans on how to inquire and stuff. And it's a huge mess, but it's just a step in the process. And if you are, I mean, another way to think about it is when, how formal do you need to be? So, for example, what is if you stop writing a note and then continue the next day? Or what if you have a couple of unfinished notes and then continue them a year later on, or 2 years later on? Or what if you write this note, for example, make a pause, then expand on the notes in for 2 weeks, and then break it up. So what is the quote unquote allowed process of atomicity there? It doesn't make sense to like have any rule to point to a situ or a step in the process where atomicity has to be reached, especially if you don't have proper knowledge about the atoms. If you don't have a proper knowledge about the atoms, you can't even make the claim that this is the right step in the process of reaching atomicity, for example.
This is incredibly interesting. I read something similar about, the chess players and
Mhm.
how, and I think that's actually the working memory can hold a limited number of chunks. They call it chunks
Mhm.
because the size of it is not defined. Like I think it was like 5 to 9 or
Mhm.
5 to 7. I don't remember how many chunks, but the size of the chunk is what changes when one gets better at something. Like the chess players, like the professionals, have much bigger chunks
Mhm.
that include more information about what is on the board. And that basically, I mean, you said it, but that reflects the in the Zettelkasten. My old notes were usually very small chunks of
Mhm.
information that I have fully integrated. So when I would see the title, I would know exactly what was meant by it. But what I was trying to do was I was trying to integrate those small chunks into a bigger chunk
Mhm.
of understanding. And for that, I needed to see them at the same time.
Yeah.
So I can see that like this note on agency has a lot of smaller chunks in it,
Mhm.
but I'm looking for something that comes out of all of them or a mix of them. I'm working with it. I'm trying to make a higher level understanding. So it makes sense to keep them together while I'm at it.
Yeah.
And maybe eventually there will be a note that will be like a higher level that again I can be shorter and can include all of these or links to them. But yeah,
Mhm.
that this makes perfect sense. This
Mhm.
makes perfect sense that one has to think about own understanding of the concepts and one's own working memory and what is the actual outcome, uh, and use the right size of a chunk for the atom.
Mhm. I mean, perhaps it's my disagreeable nature, but at this point we can even um, point to or saying that atomicity at the stage is even wrong because it forces you in a situation in which you make uninformed decision on the nature of atomicity of the content that you are dealing with. So it shouldn't be atomicity right away to be appropriate to how we think.
Yeah,
And
I mean that's kind of what was one of the reasons why I left
mhm,
the Zettelkasten because I just felt like it fractured my thoughts,
yeah, yeah.
uh, and I
I, th
could not synthesize.
I mean, it's an outrageous sentence in today's day and age, but I would say your feelings are true. I think, or perhaps a better, let's say, a non less outrageous phrasing would be, I think you had an intuition that has proven to be correct, or it maps to what is actually happened. It's not that you felt that your thinking was fractured. I think your thinking was actually fractured, and it was an external manifestation of the fracturing because the method imposed something unnatural to the stage of your thinking.
Yeah, incredibly interesting. Thank you.
Uh, my pleasure. Yeah, to like over milk a little bit the metaphor of working memory. So you could say that the central node that in the process becomes something like a structure node is then a version of a working memory with all the representations for the chunks. And the more you are able to push out the content to atomic nodes, the more you make available part of your long-term working memory stored on atomic nodes. And that means it perfectly is just too of a strong word, but I like my bombastic approach now. Um, it perfectly mirrors how the brain actually works. And obviously I feel super smart because it confirms the obviously is I think it's really Freudian because it it actually means something different. So I feel super smart because um, it confirms my claim that what happens external needs to mirror the same patterns that happens internally to actually make sense. So it works and actually helps you. Because if it's too alien, if it's too abstract in that sense, you don't have a good feel. So I don't know if it's a good comparison, but I mean, modeling, for example, is also it can be it's extremely wide. So, for example, when I model, let's say I model the economy of a country, it could be a table with various inputs. So, like this um, or this domain like chemistry or something like, or chemical industry has this input and output and this revenue and such and can pick out some numbers, and I have just a table of different industries, and then this could be viewed as a model of the economy. But if you don't have like a clear image or an intuition of all the flows and how everything works together, then you can't work properly with that. And I mean, you can use it for something, and it's appropriate for some things, but the more, let's say, immediate approach. So when economy, I mean, economy is more appropriately mapped if it's a flow of different things and a synergy of different things, a visual thing, and not a table. And this then helps a better picture. I mean, it's a more on the ground view that you then have, and it maps to better to that, and also maps to how we actually envision or to map like parts of the world, I would say. And yeah, therefore, yeah, I close with the happy feeling of being confirmed in my opinion, which is always which all feels nice, I guess, for everybody. Okay, so I think basically we confirmed the validity of your system. Second, we confirmed that this is a Zettelkasten, if you want it or not. Um, and you adhere basically to you adhere even to the principle of atomicity. I mean, which is kind of like a trick because I mean, I think that the Zettelkasten method needs to basically externalize or makes it actionable what happens on the level of knowledge work. This is why I'm so much always trying to push like the thinking pattern that there are correct and incorrect solutions. Obviously, there are individual adaptations, but there is a proper way to deal with arguments. There is a proper way to deal with the ergonomics. In that case, for example, when you atomicize, the I mean, to just summarize, there's a proper point in time that differs from domain to domain. It even differs from your mood and all kinds of things. But there's a proper way that maps to the same way how we chunk and how knowledge is consolidated in the memory. It mirrors in the same pattern. It has to be. So uh, yeah, so you are on point, and you got Zettelkasten approved now, and yeah. So last point or last desired outcome is to deal with the question. Okay, let's say, what does it mean to make an idea your own? Because you said you have the feeling, okay, now you gather just like other people's ideas, like now what to do with it. And before I hit recording, or we came to the conclusion that there are two aspects of making things your own. First of all, like taking action. So how to apply what you figured out in theory or just on the level of thinking. And the other label was that I choose that is not like really precise, but it was the best that I came up with, was making your own so it feels your own. Yeah. So I mean, one straightforward way is to actually change habits or cues in your environment. So let's say you, I don't know, I mean, you read some research and come to the conclusion you can never eat apples again because apples contain whatever and it will poison you and stuff. So what you are doing, you don't buy apples, you throw every apple out in your home and you destroy the apple tree that is in your garden. So this would be kind of like a very immediate approach. The less immediate approach would be something like a project. So, for example, what would be a good example? So from my own, let's say from my own line of work. So I felt that branding, or that we were very bad at branding, the Zettelkasten platform. So I read one book, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller, and it's a very like easily written book, so it was easy to distract it. And I basically just like ripped everything out with no like slow and careful approach and stuff like that. Just like get to the business. Now I had a template and a checklist. What does it mean to present your brand in a storytelling illusion, let's say? Then I made a project out of it. So I just created a project in my task mentioned, and I had the various steps, and then I followed the various steps. I created the thing, and then this was putting this into practice. I think this is true for everything that you can do like straight away, and it's true for things that are finite. I mean, agency. So that if the problem is developing more agency in your life, obviously you can have like a project and say, okay, now I want to build agency, step 1 to 5, and then you are done with agency in your life. So this would be the most indirect thing, I think. So it's about drawing conclusions in your life, meaning you need to form, or one way is to form questions out of the thing. So, for example, the first thing, so if you would strictly apply the definition, so it is to know what you want. So, learn what you want. That means that you make a map of your life, you make a list of values. So, there are like a gazillion tools on how to figure out what you want. Plus, now you want to have a safety net because what you want may change, or you are wrong with your first approach, stuff like that. So, how would you do it?
The safety net, you mean?
Mhm.
I would have to think about that. I don't know. As in, you mean like what happens if I pick the wrong?
Mhm. Or if it just changed. So, I mean, some for some periods you want something, and then the want kind of like spoils. So, for example, in your 20s, you want, for many people, it is you want dumb things, and some things are fine, but wanting the same thing in your 20s and in your 30s is typically a sign of like a disorganized life.
Yeah. No, I guess it would depend on what I would identify as the things that I want. Keeping a plan B, I guess.
Mhm. So a plan B would be something. So what I would do is just have a review, like a regular review. I mean, this is what you
Okay.
are already doing on a monthly basis, for example. So
Mm.
you look at all your stuff, then you update your goals, and like come into contact with whatever you are using. It's like kind of like the 5-year plan, the immediate projects, whatnot. So this would
Yeah.
be a way to update, to know what you want. And the next thing is, yeah, being able to pursue it. So this would be also like quite straightforward. So you create a list of conditions for each item that you created for the first point, and see if you are already meeting the conditions, or what has to change to be able to meet the conditions. And then obviously you need to evaluate, because sometimes you don't want to deliver the input to create the output. I mean, this is yeah, let's say as a side quest, this is also a side point. This is one of the most important questions that I try to answer with clients, namely, how should the everyday look like? Because people think mostly in, let's say, in heroic terms. So everything is thought to be an adventure. So let's say you want to build a business, or you want to build a family, or something like that. And the model that yeah, most people that I talk with is, it's a heroic adventure. It's like a big endeavor that you push through, and then you have it. But the reality is, and I think for that, old school 80s movies did a fine job to illustrate that, is they do it with a training montage. Because if you, let's assume you want to become a warrior, let's say in Karate Kid or any martial arts movie, you have to endure like a very, I mean, if it would be just like a boring everyday life, it would be fine because boredom is like somewhat easy to endure. It's a painful everyday life. And this is how our life feels. The everyday life is the feeling or provides the feeling of our life. So how do we wake up? Do we have a family on our own, or are we just on our own? Are we living in a house, in a flat with like a lot of furniture, less furniture, stuff like that? So the everyday life, so the day with the basic habits, so what repeats daily is basically identical with the feeling of life, and this is the input for our life. So you need to be willing to do both, and then you adjust. So either you say, okay, I don't know, let's say you want to become a good martial artist, but you don't want to train every day because you are lazy, then you need to decide. Either you
Mm.
say, okay, I'm a lazy fuck, and therefore I need to change, or you say, okay, martial arts is becoming a martial arts master is not for me, for example. And then you like adjust, and then the review. And this would be just on the first point. So, and this is how you would um, go through most of it. So you ask yourself, okay, what are the practical or the immediate implications of this and that? So to give you an example of perhaps something more abstract on the theory level and how to make it happen is I thought about, or my definition of intimacy is that intimacy is a gradual thing, and it increases with the inclusion, with the exclusion of other people to, let's say, to the relationship. So, for example, when me and my wife are very intimate, not in every aspect, obviously, because we do things with each other that we don't do with anybody else. Um, this also means, for example, that we as a family have a more intimate relationship than some other families because right now, because our children are small, we sleep all in the same bed. So it's not that I'm in this aspect more intimate with my wife than with my children because I sleep with her in one bed and they sleep in their own bed. We share all the things. So this is an aspect of intimacy. And I did it, or I applied it also to the use of smartphone. Because if you have a smartphone in your pocket, available, like on the table or whatnot, it actively hurts intimacy because you made yourself available to other people. So you damage the family meal, um, the date that you're on, whatever. So proper dealing with smartphone, even availability is a problem because you can ignore your smartphone, but if it's like on loud, or even when the vibrator alarm is loud enough, it's basically also being loud. So the constant reminder of people like asking, "Hey, are you available? Hey, are you available?" is also hurting. I mean, you can like just envision it. Let's say you are you on your first date or third date or whatever is your speed of escalation, and you try to have a first kiss. Let's assume it would be something like 20 seconds of recognizing, okay, now we want to kiss, and then you kind of like figure out, and then you need to like
Mm.
get your act together, so you actually like overcome the hesitation, stuff like that. 20 seconds. Now imagine every 3 seconds somebody asks, like interrupts you and say, do you want to talk? Or, hey, I read a news article. Perhaps this is what you want to read. Stuff like that. So, I mean, because of the physical or the immediate like interaction, it's very easy to understand and feel that this would completely destroy the moment. The same is with a smartphone. Obviously, it's not that strong because there's nobody present in, let's say, in the living room when you have a family meeting. So there is less damage to the intimacy than a physical person jumping through your window and saying, hey, do you want to buy this product on Amazon? I like it really much, or something like that. But it's still a constant thing, and this damage of the smartphone is the volume. So the practical implication of this definition is a change of dealing with smartphones, a change of dealing with attentions. So let's say, when I'm on a date, to me, with my wife, to me, it's just about her. I mean, it sounds like a basic thing, but I don't. So I'm not on a date. Let's say we play billiard. Is it in English the same word? Billiard? Pool?
Pool. I think they call it pool.
Yeah, we don't play snooker, but yeah, the thing with
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
stick and hitting the balls. So for me, I don't focus on the game, for example. I focus on the game as a means to focus on my wife. So it's a slightly different approach, for example. But this is how I approach dates with my wife. Hopefully, when we have dates again, when my children are older, for example. So this would be, I mean, when you think about the definition of intimacy, intimacy is identical with exclusion of other people. It's rather, I mean, in German, it even sounds more technical, so it's very abstract. But if you think about that, about the immediate application, so grounding, let's say, this theoretical construct, then it becomes immediate, and then also the practical implications become, they jump more forward to you. And then it's a matter of timing. So you could say, okay, I just like think theoretically about that, or you can always interject this kind of thing. So for me, for me personally, for example, it became easier and easier the longer I was a coach, because I constantly think about applications because of my coaching. So it's just a natural thing. So if it's not a natural thing, you might put a reminder for that, or you can even have a template of a note. So a template would be more prompts or open or maybe prompts. I mean, it's not a duty. You don't need to have to like deal with a prompt, but it's an invitation. I mean, the problem with this is always it's a nudge. So sometimes it feels forced, and you do it anyway because of completionist or something like that. So there are the pitfalls there. But this would be one way of making it your own. Is Yeah, making it your own. So just a reminder, feel free to interrupt me. Interrupting me is a good idea.
No, yeah, I guess I'm not that good at bringing it actually back to reality,
Not
what
good.
I'm thinking about. So, so this is a good reminder, and I'll probably add some nudges to myself to think about it. And it was interesting to see how granularly you went through, like, oh, what does this part of the definition mean
Mm,
in real life?
mm,
Which I guess I've never done before, like to that degree, to kind of go through it and
mm,
force myself to consider real life applications.
mm,
And when it comes to the smartphone thing, yeah, you're right. You're right there. It interferes with real life relationships when it's present.
mm, mm.
You don't have a smartphone, right?
This is my phone.
That's your phone.
It's the old phone of Christian's grandpa, which was just available because he died, and then I took it. So this is the story of my phone. It's a phone for elderly people, big numbers, big stuff, no functions. I mean, there are a lot of functions, but they are not intrusive. So typical like a calendar and stuff like that. So I might even simplify, because the optimal phone, in my opinion, is a phone that has a messenger and an ability to call, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, everything else is a computer.
Yeah.
And no one would take out their computer at a cafe when talking to friends or a date, right? You
Like a
wouldn't think it's
laptop.
okay. Yeah, you wouldn't pull out your laptop and start like, oh, I'll just check something quickly while you're ordering food, or I don't know,
Yeah.
right? You wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
moment it's a small screen, it's
I
yeah.
think there's some devious going on with smartphones. I mean, I don't have any empirical evidence for it, but I think because of the touchscreen, you're basically stroking your phone like a lot. And I think it does something to oneself, because what I'm observing now, especially when I'm like I'm in the city with my daughter and yeah, my daughter. I mean, it sounds a little bit harsh, but you can have as the discussion with a 2.5-year-old because it's just, oh, look at there's a dove. Yes, there's a dove. And what color has the dove? And you build in some like tiny lectures, but you don't need to be fully on to teach colors, let's say.
No.
And what I witness more and more is that people now carry the phone in their hand. It's not even in the pocket. It's not in the backpack or something like that. It's in the hand, in the hand. It's almost as if I imagine the image of holding the hand of some like really ugly monster. This is the image. I think it's not from me, but from some YouTuber, in the context of artificial or AI girlfriends. And he said it's not even that you have an individual AI girlfriend, but he envisions like a really ugly tentacle monster, and you just have contact to one of its tentacles, basically. But I mean, immediately or physically, it's actually true because it's just one AI, and you have just like one port of interaction. And this is how I view the smartphone. So for me, it's one tentacle of like a big sickness, like a big ugly monster from Lovecraft, like
Mm.
infiltrating us people. And I mean, I don't know. It might be just an aesthetic thing. Perhaps I'm overblowing the problem slightly or something like that. But to me, it's when I saw that people started to carry the phone in the hand. To me, it was or this realization was really like disturbing.
No, I can see that. And I've been trying to reduce my phone use and sort of removed a lot of apps and try not to use it for browsing and stuff. But I find it very difficult to make the leap to getting rid of it and replacing it with a dumb phone
Hmm.
because there's just so many things that are useful. I mean, it is useful, and I'm out of the house most of the day normally, not
Hmm.
today, but that means that it's nice to be able to like, I don't know, pay the bills or even just buy a train ticket. Because
Hmm.
if I buy it physically, then I don't get a discount. But if I buy it
Hmm.
through the app, then I get a discount.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like 30%. So it's like, I still feel like I need it, but I don't want it.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps it works. It's my idea is, um, yeah, sadly, I'm completely captured by the Apple economy. Um, I mean, yeah, it's a whole. I skipped the story of being captured by this economy, but my idea is because I see the conveniences, and I see the conveniences, or some of the conveniences are not really detracting. Let's say they are not detraining my mind. Part of, let's say, detraining, for example, is not knowing telephone numbers anymore, not being able to orientate yourself. Even the basic orientation tasks are now completely overwhelming because you are so trained, just like look at your phone and letting some machine tell you where you have to go. Um, but is I want to keep an even more reduced phone than I have, and I had one back then. It had, but I don't know why it was. My father like just took it from me. So my father, so I was like 26 or something like that. This tells you something about my relationship to my father, and it was fine. So I never wasn't angry at him. He just like took it from me, put my SIM card into one of the earlier touchscreen phones, and then he said, "Okay, you need to move to the next step. It's shameful, this thing." So my father hadn't like in this to me it was fine, but I want to dumb down my phone even more and then have something like an iPad mini. So I'm not strict on having an iPad or like any other tablet, but something that is like in between, something that is inconvenient to have it in your hand, but has like the all the smartphone features. So it's no problem to pull it out of your back pocket or I don't know, your purse, whatever you carry, and but then you want to put it back because you don't want to have this clunky thing then in your hand. So this would be my idea in theory that you might then test.
That's an interesting thought. Um, yeah, that's yeah. Because just willpower doesn't work for this.
But I mean, if even if willpower would work, why would you use your willpower for this task?
Something, yeah. If you can solve it in an easier way, then why waste energy, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it easier. I would say it's the wrong fight. I don't want to fight with an army of the smartest engineers in the world for my own attention. So, I mean, even if I could win it, what would be the benefit of the fight? I wouldn't get stronger. It would just deplete me. So it's not about thing being easier. It's just about doing the right thing or fighting the right fights.
Fair enough.
I mean, it might be a play of words. I don't think it's a play of words, but this is how I put it.
I yeah, I like that. Agree.
Yeah,
Anyway,
if you try it, please give me an experience report because
I
perhaps
will.
you implemented before me, and then I have justification for my decision. So we have action. We are not. I mean, we are in the final step. Not that I want have to end the session, but we are solving the last problem. So do you feel that something is missing?
Not really. I mean, I got a lot of interesting ideas from talking to you today, and um, I guess I validated a lot of the things I'm already doing,
Mm,
and I can see how I can tweak some other things and how I can take it further. I think what I've been missing the most is just taking whatever I get to real life consequences.
mm,
And that will also make it feel more like my own, uh, and apply to my own life. And it's gonna bring up more ideas because
mm,
the moment you try to apply something, it connects to other things immediately. So I think I just have to be a bit more conscious about doing that.
mm. Yeah, perhaps like a prompt would be a good idea because the problem with a prompt is the problem itself becomes the cue. So when you think about this as a habit, having a prompt often means that you don't develop the habit, but you create a cue, and if the cue is not there, then the habit will not form. So, for example, if you have a daily reminder of doing yoga, you won't develop the habit of doing yoga because the prompt is dependent on this reminder. So you won't also get the benefits of a habit, meaning the benefit of a habit is that you don't um, use willpower because it's basically so will I mean to me this node, for example, so in my Zettelkasten it would be connected, or perhaps the content would be rather it's spread. So some of the content already is my Zettelkasten. It's spread on topics like willpower, um, freedom of will. So it's very connected to will. So perhaps agency is actually lift out freedom of will or embodied freedom of will. So this might be even a candidate for translating it like roughly into German, I guess. Um, and so when a habit or the benefit of a habit is that you put something closer to your identity. So identity basically, or you can view identity as, or something closer to your identity as something more or less and less negotiable. So if you, let's say you are like a very orthodox, like hardcore Jew, like eating pork is not, it's not even something that you consider. It's not like it's completely excluded, but even more excluded than a person that says, yeah, I don't eat pork because I don't like it, or I don't eat pork, let's say, or you have, oh, I don't know the English term. Let's say you have a condition, and pork make it worse. So this is, I mean, it's still open. So this person might say, okay, or let's say the person is on a wedding and there is, for some reason, the person gets pork. There might be a situation in which the person say, okay, I don't want to make a fuss out of it, and the only downside that I have is this and that. So there's already internal negotiation about this going. For the Jew, it's completely off because it's very close to the identity, perhaps closest to the identity. And you have basically like arbitrary stuff on the outside. You have plans and all the conscious stuff. And then you get like more and more to habits. And habits are basically stuff that in which you can intervene, but mostly don't. So, for example, I could for some reason decide that I don't brush my teeth in the morning for whatever reason. But it's such a habit. So I like, even if I just had like 5 hours of interrupted sleep, I like slug or like I force myself into the bathroom, and the first thing that I do is take out my toothbrush. But I don't know. I could even do it as an experiment. I can say, how do I feel to not brush my teeth? So next morning I will do it. Perhaps sometimes I forget it. So habits are difficult. Sometimes, the more stronger a habit is, the more difficult it becomes to interact with the habit. So deciding not to do it or change it or whatnot. But it's still possible. Then the next, let's say, layer would be something like a compulsion. And compulsion is something that you can't help, but you are conscious of it. Then there are stuff that you are not even conscious about. I mean, you can like externally, so you can reflect, and perhaps it's part of your religion, and so you can like think abstractly about this, but the very thing that you are following is not conscious about. So it might even, so for example, in the case of the Jew, it might be even like from the childhood instilled, and it's perhaps now the Jew is not eating pork because of like a very strong disgust, and it merges with the belief and stuff, and the Jew might, or this person might even like is able to psychologize about it. So it's perhaps, I don't know, let's say the person is now watching this video and then say, I never thought about that, and then there's some like reflection and say, yes, it's out of disgust. But you can't like undiscuss your disgust just by knowing something. It's the same with an optical illusion. You can act like rationally about that, but the optical illusion is always like tricking your mind. And then at the most inner circle, so I don't want to like lay out my complete freedom of will model here, but the most core thing is the biochemical workings of your cell. So you have no consciousness, no ability to interact with how your mitochondria create ATP, for example. Still, you can interfere with it, obviously. So you can, for example, do endurance training or eat some supplements or like do a ketogenic diet, something like that. So can something interfere, but it's in no form are you in direct contact with the ATP production, for example. And somewhere in the middle is the core of yourself. So it's not even the core yourself. It's still a layer around this, at least to my model. And if you have the prompt, a reminder or something like that, you don't make it a habit. And what you actually want is, or the goal should be, to create a way of thinking. So it should, I mean, for me, for example, this is yeah, perhaps even new information now for myself, is because of me being a coach, thinking about the practical relevance is almost a compulsion, perhaps even like deeper. Perhaps it's even like core of my identity. It might even be because what people tell me in my private life is often they don't say it like that, but they say like the summarization is that I am elicit a coaching, let's say, a coaching force field. So I'm not like interacting, like I'm not like doing a lot of small talk stuff like that. It's not friendly, unfriendly stuff like that. I'm like constantly seeming to either push or to counsel or to inquire. Or I mean, I have like a different, not different. I have a particular way of coaching. It's a very, let's say, Socratic with seeing questions, uncovering stuff like that. But still, it's my thing. So it might be that for me, it's very, very like close to the core. And I mean, obviously, it doesn't have to be like super close to the core. So I mean, it's not possible, but I don't want to put or to move thinking about the practical implications so close that it's almost the way how my mitochondria produce ATP or something like that. But I would say thinking about the practical implications should be more than just a reaction to a prompt. But I don't know how to make it happen. So it's a hole in my game as a coach that I have to figure out. So it might be actually a good thing to just put it at a prompt and then ask yourself, okay, does it actually like go deeper and it becomes more of a habit? I think it could.
My Yeah, my initial idea is, at least what I'm thinking of doing, is adding that as a journaling prompt at the end of the
Mm,
day,
mhm,
to to prompt myself at the end of the day to think about whether I did that, how I did that during the
mhm,
day, if I thought about consequences, which will motivate me to do it next day, because
mhm,
I will know that I will be thinking about this later. So
mhm,
it might in a circumvent way get to kind of bring that thought into my mind without having the prompt all the time.
mhm,
So that would be, but I'm gonna test that.
mhm, mhm,
But for me, that's something that I often do with habits that I want to introduce, uh, and I found that somewhat useful. But I never really evaluated it in any proper way. So
mhm,
it's just an intuition. Um, but I'm gonna test it, and maybe I'll let you know.
mhm. So I think so. I just have like two ideas to that, and then I think it will be sufficiently dealt. Unless obviously you have also then an additional idea. So first thing is um, whatever you are doing, set a reminder now in 3 weeks, and with a question of did this change actually make a change in your life? So you write down the problem and describe it to the best of your ability, and then later on um, ask yourself, okay, did I actually change my approach to solve the problem? Because this then allows you to be more free from it, just an immediate feel. Because it might be typically it is okay, you feel okay, did I change? Yes, perhaps, and then you want to change, and so you wishful thinking comes into play, and all these kind of like human biases, and this is basically like you. Do you know the meme? Send him to Dagestan, forget 2 3 years or something like that. No,
No,
it's
I don't think so.
yeah, it was like there was or Dagestan is some in the Caucasus. It's a province, and one of the it's kind of like a breeding ground for MMA fighters. And it was a discussion, and the interviewer said, "Yeah, perhaps I sent my kid like 2 weeks, or we visit you for 2 weeks, and then you can learn some wrestling." And the guy is like really straightforward and says, "Send him Dagestan 2 3 years, forget." And the other person says, "What?" And there's okay, 6 months, one time you can call. They're like really really hardcore. Yeah, but the basic it follows the similar pattern. So you change or you introduce the experiment, and then you kind of like try to forget. So you don't interact a lot, but just you follow the experiment, and then only after 3 months you make an evaluation, and you make sure that you do the evaluation just by the reminder. Um, or this helps a little bit to unbias your thinking. And the second one is what I did in my past when I want to like really incorporate something, I basically let my life evolve like 6 weeks or more around this. So for when I learned about, let's say, some ethical stuff for a couple of weeks, and I mean the cost is that, or at least for me, it was the cost that I was really annoying because everything that I spoke, everything was filtered through this one topic that I was focusing on. But when you stop, then like after how long you are basically like letting your life revolve around that, you will fall back a little bit in your old way, but something remains. So if you, for example, do a diet for 6 months and be completely hardcore about it, and then say, okay, now the phase is over. Something of this stuff remains. It might be even just something, not putting this food or that food on your plate. It might be something like weighing some of the food or having like a standard breakfast or whatnot. So something sticks. And I think yeah, if you focus for some time your mind on it, in that case, I don't see the downsides. It would be different, let's say, if you are on a hardcore diet for one year and then you develop like some eating disorder. I don't think this is a danger if you for some time just ask yourself like continuously, what are the practical implications?
That sounds good. Yeah. I don't think I have much to say to that. Sounds good.
Okie dokie. Then I will, so bye bye viewers. We don't need to make a fuss about saying goodbye to the viewers, or you can say, what do you want to say goodbye?
Uh, do we need a like and subscribe? No,
So you heard
thank you.
Nori, like and subscribe.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for watching, and hope you got something out of it. I definitely did.
So bye bye.